It is 10 o'clock and I want to make sure that we have time to get through all of our great questions that we have for our panelists today. But before I begin, I wanted to go ahead and just cover a few housekeeping items. First, please check to ensure that your microphone is on mute. We will begin with a few introductions, then we'll have our panel, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. So you'll have a time to maybe take yourself off of mute to ask questions, or you can also use the chat function if you have a question that you really don't want to forget, and we can cover those in the chat once we are all done with the panel questions. We hope this morning's event is going to inspire you and kick off the start to a great week. I know I'm super excited to be with all of you today and to celebrate International Women's Day. So let's get started with some introductions. First, this event is being presented in partnership with the Women's Resource of Greater Houston and the University of Houston Downtown's Economic Stability Lab. My name is Kelly Keith, and I'm the Senior Program Director at the Women's Resource, and we are also here with Richard Simons. Richard, give us a wave. Who is with us from the University of Houston Downtown's Financial Coaching and Economic Stability Lab. Richard and I have known each other for 10 plus years. We're both proud social workers, go social work. And we are excited to bring this event to you today in partnership with these two wonderful organizations. So I'm going to start by just doing a little bit of an introduction to UHD and then to the Women's Resource, and then we'll get to our panel. So first, the UHD Financial Coaching and Economic Stability Lab was founded in 2020 within the College of Public Service at the University of Houston Downtown. Super exciting. The mission of the lab is to improve financial health of all Houstonians through training, coaching, research, and collaboration. And the lab also serves as a field practicum site for social work students, which I also am super excited about. The Women's Resource of Greater Houston believes that a woman who controls her finances controls her destiny. We are a nonprofit located right here in Houston, founded in 1990. Our mission is to help women and girls make choices toward becoming financially independent, productive, and financially stable. And we do this through offering free financial education classes, which we call Your Life Finances. You can find links to all of our classes, which are now all virtual, on our website. And we also offer two financial coaching programs, Your Life Coaching, which is one-on-one coaching, and Your Life Possibility Groups, which is our group coaching program. So before I introduce the panel today, I wanted just to start sharing a little bit of information about International Women's Day. I think it's important to look at the history and maybe just kind of recognize a few important dates as we, ourselves go into the day celebrating it. So first, International Women's Day is a global day which celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. It's celebrated annually on March 8th, and it's an important day that we celebrate women's achievements, that we're raising awareness about women's equality, we're lobbying for accelerated gender parity, and we are talking about fundraising for female-focused charities, like the Women's Resource. So a few important dates that we have, on the timeline for International Women's Day is in 1911, is when International Women's Day actually was honored for the first time. It was honored in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. On this day in 1911, more than 1 million women and men attended rallies campaigning for women's rights to vote, to be trained, to hold public office, and to end discrimination. Fast forward to 2001. There were a lot of important events between 1911 and 2001. I'm going to, for the sake of time, fast forward. So in 2001, the internationalwomensday.com platform was launched with the specific purpose of re-energizing the day. And then in 2011 is when International Women's Day celebrated its 100th anniversary. And in the United States, President Barack Obama actually proclaimed March 2011 to be Women's History Month, calling for International Women's Day to be recognized, and that extraordinary accomplishments of women would also be recognized in shaping the country's history. So now that we're in 2021, we're celebrating the 110th year of International Women's Day. And just, the improvements that have been made. But while there's still, we've made a lot of progress in 110 years, there's still a lot to be done. And it's important that we still come together and then we recognize and celebrate women, that we're continuing to raise awareness about equality, and that we're continuing to support efforts that are supporting and inspiring women. So at the Women's Resource, we're often asked the question, why finances? Why women? And you're here today, so I'm sure you kind of probably understand some of the answers to those questions, but I'll just kind of run through a few of the statistics that we often share with people who ask those questions. So first, 44% of Americans are not able to cover a $400 out-of-pocket emergency expense. 44% of Americans. And only 1 out of 3 households, American households, is maintaining a budget. We talk a lot about budgeting at the Women's Resource. Around half of the United States adults carry credit card debt, with the average balance being between $6,000 to $7,000. And right now, around 50% of marriages are ending in divorce. Divorce can actually often causes a lot more financial hardship for women. So that's one of the things that we talk about. And then in Texas, women are currently paid 80 cents to every dollar paid to a man, amounting to an annual wage gap of around $9,500. And then lastly, women typically live on average 5 years longer than men, yet they're traditionally investing less than men toward retirement. So these are some of the reasons that we have chosen to focus on women. There are a host of other reasons, but these are some of the big ones. And that we choose to focus on finances. Because like we said, women who control their finances control their destiny. So one of my favorite programs at the Women's Resource is our Your Life Possibility Groups. Our Your Life Possibility Groups works with around 10 to 12 women in a group setting for 9 weeks. Women in the group set financial goals and work toward achieving those goals during the 9-week program. They're supported by 2 volunteer financial coaches and their peers. And the program sees tremendous success group after group after group. We're talking groups of 10 ladies saving over $15,000, paying off over $15,000 worth of debt in 9 weeks. So what's the secret, right? Well, the secret is talking about your finances. Yep, that's it. Talking about your finances. In this day and age, we don't talk about our finances. But when we do, guess what? We realize we are not alone. We find that we have similar experiences with other people. We share ideas and we encourage one another. And all of this helps us to make great strides and to accomplish our goals. So today we're going to do just that. We're going to talk about our finances. And we have 3 amazing ladies who are going to share their stories with us and answer some questions. And then you'll get a chance to ask them some questions too. So I want to go ahead and introduce them to you. First, we have Ashley Tate. Ashley, give everybody a wave. Ashley Tate is the Your Life Program Manager with the Women's Resource. She is a Houston native. She decided to work with the Women's Resource to expand her experience in the nonprofit field. She believes that everyone deserves access not just to what they need, but the services and opportunities that they want. The most fulfilling part of her job is being able to provide equitable opportunities to Houston's women and connect individuals to the resources that they need. Second, we have Erica Jones. Erica is passionate about community engagement. She is the Community Development Officer with Frost Bank. She's also passionate about outreach and making a difference in the lives of Houstonians. She has over 10 years of experience implementing the strategic use of communications, providing administrative direction for community programs and events, and writing content for various publications. And third, we have Jenny Gooseman. Hi, Jenny. Jenny is also with Community Development. She's a Community Development Officer with Texas Capital Bank. She is a Houston native and passionate about community engagement. She has spent the majority of her career in nonprofit program and fund development and corporate social responsibility, and has over 15 years of community development experience. With a full heart, Jenny believes every woman is fully capable to trailblaze her own path to success. The most fulfilling part of her job is being able to walk alongside people and organizations to help them grow and change for the better. So It is truly an honor to sit or stand or be in a virtual space, I guess, with the three of you. I've actually known and worked with Jenny and Erica for over 10 years, and have the pleasure of working day to day with Ashley Tate. And Erica, just fun fact, Erica and Jenny have also been serving as two of our volunteer financial coaches for our Your Life Possibility groups over the last 2 years. You guys are in for a treat. They're amazing. So we have some questions for you guys. Are y'all ready? Okay, good. All right, let's get started. Ashley, is it okay if I start with you with the first question?
Of course. Let's go ahead, Kelly.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so the first question is, what is one thing that you wish you would have known about managing your finances before starting your career?
Yes. So I'll start by saying there are many, many things I wish I would have known. But at the top of the list, I'd have to say basically the mindset of I set the rules, but I also have to follow them. So I think when I first started looking at managing my finances and setting goals for myself, I was always looking at what are other people doing? How much are other people spending? How much are other people saving? And so getting further and further into understanding my own personal finances, I really understood the importance and the value of starting with where I was one, able and capable of starting. And then two, setting goals that were important and meaningful to me. So not just doing something that was a standard. And although there are a number of different statistics out there saying like what your baseline should be, understanding that that doesn't have to be necessarily my baseline, because my baseline could be less than that, it could be higher than that, but just making sure that it was something that I was setting that was a rule or a goal that was important and impactful and meaningful to me, specifically with where I was at. And then also understanding that those goals and where I want to be can change over time, and it has changed over time. Where I started saving when I first left college is very, very different from where I'm at now further into my career. So understanding just the basic idea and kind of concept of I'm setting the rules, but I also need to hold myself accountable to following them and to keeping up with them.
Great, thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Erica, what about you? What's one of the things that you wish you would have known about managing your finances before starting your career?
Well, quite honestly, I think before starting my career, I really would have liked to know how to budget, because believe it or not, I knew how to pay my bills. Like I had bills in college, but that's all I knew was pay your bills on time. Like that was the thing. But what do you do with the rest of it? Like I probably went on more vacations in college than I probably should have. My mom was always asking, "How are you getting there?" And it's it's the college way of, well, you get your student loans and you pay your books, you pay your schools, and once you have all this left over, let's go somewhere. And I was surrounded by people who had this mentality, and so I was not the best at budgeting. I knew how to pay my bills, but that was it. And after that, I kind of blew it. So I think the thing about why I love Women's Resource so much is that with your classes and educational platform is that we talk so much about budgeting, and we spend so much time making sure people understand exactly what that looks like and exactly what that means to them and what it could mean for their future. That's why I love it, because I knew I didn't have that, and I knew that it could have made a huge difference had I known.
Great, thanks. All right, Jenny.
All right. Now, I know you're probably hoping for a different answer, but I'm with Erica on budgeting. When I graduated college, I started working, and I feel like I had a plan, for my career and my future, but I did not have a plan for what I was going to do with the money that I made in my career, whether it be, my first job making under 30,000 until now, so I definitely think learning how to budget would have been a useful tool. And I did not learn that in school or in college. I learned a little bit in graduate school because my master's was in public administration. That was honestly the first time that I had to build a budget. I had to build a city budget as part of a class, and I was 100% lost on what to do. I just sort of imagined a budget as being a list of expenses and a list of, whatever your income was. And then I realized, wait a second, this is supposed to be an actual plan. Like I need to have a plan for what I'm going to do, not just with, the money that I have to spend on bills every month. But like Erica said, what do you do with the rest of it? And so I think if I had had that skill set, early on, I'd be a lot better off today. But one thing that I did do, and I appreciate that the Women's Resource talks about a lot, is a spending diary. And I feel like that's so helpful, whether you know how to create a budget or not. I feel like this is really the first step, is to literally sit down and write down every single expense that you have every day. So if you buy a soda for $1.50, you write it down. If you are a smoker and you're spending $5, $6, $7 a day on cigarettes or more, you write it down. If you go to Starbucks, I mean, how many of us are getting coffee? I know not all of us right now, but every day we're spending these small amounts that add up to something so much larger, and it draws a different perspective when you're looking at your plan for the future and where you want your money to go. So it's really about controlling your finances without them controlling you. So.
Yeah, very good. So I'm just going to have a few follow-up questions. Jenny, I love that you provided kind of, where you first heard about budgeting. I actually can't remember where I first heard about budgeting, but I also know that I didn't have that skill down in college as well. Erica, do you recall when you first learned to budget and where, kind of how you learned that?
That's a good question. I cannot recall, but I want to say I was full-grown adult before I actually put that into practice. So not college and not grad school, because I went to grad school like right after college. So, and it was in another state. That was a whole nother conversation. We could do a whole nother thing about that. But even then I still had the same mentality. So I didn't learn it then either. So I think I was full grown on my own before I got that part together.
Yeah. And Ashley, you talked about not comparing, or I guess you talked about, just having your own goals and, being focused on what was important to you. I think that's so true today. It's so easy to focus on what other people are doing. And that statistic about credit card debt with, US Americans having on average $6,000 to $7,000 in credit card debt. I think sometimes we forget, when we look across the street, or we have a friend or somebody in our circle who maybe has a newer car, or who's taking that trip, or who's just has something that maybe we'd like to have, and thinking that's where I should be, really not knowing what the whole story is, with that person, whether they're budgeting, they're not budgeting, they're using credit cards or not. So when did you first realize or kind of decide that you were going to do your own thing?
I'd say it was definitely probably my junior or senior year of college. I was working part-time on campus at a student job. And I was starting to make money for one of the first few times of my life. And I was like, okay, I need to do something with this. I realized I have student loans, and I was like, that can wait. That I'm not going to touch just yet. So I was in my own head thinking, okay, how can I prioritize this? What can I really do with it? And then just due to my upbringing, knowing that savings wasn't really something that was highly, I guess, prioritized in my household, or wasn't something that was often talked about. I just got really fixated on this idea of, okay, I need to save. I don't know what I'm going to save for. I don't know why I'm saving. I don't know how much I'm putting away, but I need to save. And so then, just quick Google searches, how much do people save? And coming up with this idea of around anywhere from $400 to $600. And I was like, what? As an undergraduate student working a college campus, saving that much money was just ridiculous to me. Having that much money in my savings was the most absurd idea. So very quickly I was like, I can't do this. And I just really got kind of bogged down around the idea of understanding, okay, if this is the average amount of how much I should have in my savings, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do? Because I still have to eat. I still have to buy books. I still have to buy other things, Scantrons, all this other stuff. And so really just kind of talking to other people, and they're just like, I mean, I don't have that much in my savings. And then just realizing, okay, a lot of people my age don't have this much money put away. So what can I start doing? And really just kind of shifting my mentality early on that, okay, what the Google search is saying is the ideal isn't something that I can realistically or practically do right now, then how do I shift that mindset to start doing something, even if it's not the whole gambit, the whole $500? How much can I save? And at the time, I think I was saving like maybe $5 or $10 a paycheck, but for me, that was something, and it was better than not doing anything. So it's like, okay, it's $5 to $10, but hey, if I need an extra Scantron for myself, I'll have $5 to $10 in my savings to pull from. So just early on having that mentality of like, that's not something I can really do. So let me shift to do something that's within my reach right now.
Oh, I love that story, because we tell that, we share that all the time with, individuals who come to the Women's Resource, that savings is a habit. So it's, it's a day by day, habit that you do. And even if it's just $1 a day, $1 a week, as long as you're putting something in savings, then you're building that habit, you're building that skill, and you're working towards something. So I love that. All right, well, their next question, and we'll start with Jenny on this question. We'll just go back across the panel, is what is one piece of advice that someone gave you in your life that's really shaped how you think about or manage money?
So definitely have to give out a shout out to my mom, who's no longer with us, but she was a single mom. And one of the things that she shared with me early on was to never be dependent on anyone for my financial future or my career or anything. And so she sort of instilled in me that, at an early age. And she always said, I hope you marry a man who is wonderful and cares for you and loves you just as much as you'll love and care for him, but never depend on him to be your sole provider, because God forbid something happens, a tragedy or something else, you need to be independent on your own and have your own plan for your future, for your retirement, for your career. And so I feel like that's just always kind of stuck with me. And my husband is not offended that I'm independent outside of him. So
thanks for sharing. All right, Erica.
Well, mine isn't as eloquent as Jenny's. I actually took some of my advice from a song, and it's more money, more problems. But I really think that it should have been more money, more choices. Because I think as I've grown and, changed careers and gone from one spectrum to another spectrum, like the more that you make, the more income, the more money you have access to, the more choices that you actually have. And so it's more of how do you balance having all of these choices and still staying within your means, still using your budget, still having, entertainment and fun and still living life, but not having all of these other overwhelming factors that come with that. So it definitely is something that is true and evident every single day. I also think that should also apply with more children, more problems, more choices, more problems, like that, all of that goes together. And, it's just evident that if you don't already have a plan, or at least have some pieces of a plan, like you could totally go sideways without realizing that you're going off the rails before it's too late. But I think that, that whole budget piece is the real deal, and is definitely the foundation for having the ability to tell your money where you want it to go, and be able to take advantage of some of those other choices that you're given when you do have access to more money, and then not just totally freak you out. So yeah, I totally would say that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that happens in our possibility groups that I just love is women start to share about their budgets and about, what they're seeing when they put together their budget, what they're happy about, what they're not happy about, what they want to set goals around. And when women set goals, budgeting goals, and then come back and share their progress, it's like all these light bulbs start going off and all these ideas start getting shared. And things that just creative solutions to the way that we spend our money are created in our groups, and that inspires and empowers people to further their goals or further their work toward their goals. So I agree with you on that for sure. All right, Ashley.
Yes. So this is a piece of advice or something I actually heard very recently, and it was with Kelly in a coaching training that we led earlier this year. But one of the coaches who was on the call, they said something that they often tell their clients is a goal deferred is not a goal denied. And so that was something that really helped to shift my mindset and my mentality. And as you'll probably pick up if you haven't already, I'm very big on things that shift my mentality, because that's, to me, that's the pivotal moment of when I can actually start changing my mindset to changing my behavior. And so you all see me here. I'm fairly young. I've grown up in a time where I have instant gratification to a lot of things. I see something on Amazon, click of a button, I have it. So it's very hard to compartmentalize that mentality to not be so focused on instant gratification when it comes to my goals, especially my financial goals. If I have a goal in mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it. But sometimes I need to realize, depending on my circumstances, depending on other competing goals, whether I'm paying down debt, but I also want to buy a car or get a house or whatever it is, I can't necessarily do all of those things in one go. So it really just helped me to remember, okay, just because I can't do something now does not mean that it is a goal denied to myself. It doesn't mean that it is completely wiped off the table. It doesn't mean that it's no longer a possibility. And I think because I have very much adopted this mindset of I see it, I want it, therefore I'm going to go and get it. Oftentimes, if I'm unable to attain that thing instantly, I have this mindset of, well, it's just not going to happen, then it's just not in the cards. So it was a very, very helpful reminder to have that and to see it so just eloquently and easily summarized as a goal deferred is not a goal denied. I have it written in my journal, actually in multiple journals. So when I open them, I see that reminder. So if there's ever a time where I'm thinking, okay, I can't do this now, it doesn't mean that it won't happen at all, or it's not going to ever happen.
Definitely sounds like a good thing to put at the bottom of the budget.
Yeah, it would be.
All right, good. Well, let's get to the next question. So what is one thing you do regularly to manage your money now? And Ashley, we'll just start back up with you.
Yes. So I actually have two things for this. And the first one is a consistent budget. So I know Erica and Jenny have hit on it because it is so true. So many things that you want to do around your finances pertaining to them, managing them. So much of it stems from having a consistent and accurate budget, because that's going to tell you ultimately what you can realistically afford to do. So all these goals that I want to do or that I'm going to have to defer, I'm not going to know whether I can accomplish them or not if I don't actually know how much money I have working with me or that I have to work with. So I do my budget consistently. I look at it weekly, and then of course on payday, I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour just going through everything, fine tuning, making sure my week is set, and the next 2 weeks are set until I get paid again. So my consistent budget is one that I have to live by. I've tried not living by it and things just got a little crazy and got away from me. The second thing that I do regularly is pay myself first. So at the Women's Resource, our golden rule is to pay yourself first. And that means putting away money into your savings. So I know I've mentioned savings before as a goal that I had early on. It's still something that I hold true to me, again, because I just grew up in a household where it wasn't prioritized. And then when emergencies and other things come up, people are scrambling, and I've never wanted to be in that position. So I consistently pay myself first every payday. I always put money into my paycheck to make sure that I'm really investing in myself before I start investing in others. So those are the two main things that I do regularly and consistently to make sure that I'm managing my money the way that I would like to manage it.
Okay, and piggyback question on your conversation about goals. Do you have a place where you have your goals written down, or just like keep them all in your head?
So I have multiple things going on. One, I have a financial coach, so they help me keep track of my goals. Two, I have several goal trackers that I keep up in my workspace so I can visually see them and my progress on them. And that's something that I've actually stolen from our wild PGs. So I like to have that visual aid. And then, of course, it's just nice to give myself a pat on the back once I see my thermometer going up and up and up. And then I do have a budget. On my budget, I have line items. So if my goals are financially related, I have on my budget like to pay for whatever it is. If I'm paying down a credit card, then I'll write down on their goal pay down credit card and how much I should owe on it. So I have multiple things going on so I don't lose track or lose sight of my goals.
I always think it's really interesting to kind of hear how people are managing the progress on goals or just managing their goals. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, Erica, what's one thing you regularly do to manage your money now?
So I love Ashley's budget answer, so I won't harp on that, but I will say ditto. But my true answer is to have conversations with my kids. They probably unknowingly are the biggest flexible variable in my budget because they cost a lot of money. These kids, let me tell you, they're not cheap. And the things that they want and need and have to do and all of that jazz, like it costs a lot of money. So for me, it is about making sure that we are having these conversations about why we can and can't do things or how much things actually cost. I don't sugarcoat it with my kids, especially with my teenager, because she has her own debit card. She's got her own account. She knows she has to manage her own money. We talk about, what are you doing with your allowance that you're getting? She has ways that she can earn more money to get the things that she wants that I'm not willing to pay for. She has to earn that money. So we have a lot of conversations about that. I, at one point, was avoiding taking them to the store with me because they kept throwing things into my basket that I didn't want. But instead, I changed my approach. They can come with me, but we're going to talk about why you keep throwing things in this basket and why I say no. Or bring your money. You want some gum? You want McDonald's when we leave? Like, bring your money. I'm more than happy to be your Uber and take you over there and you can get what you like. But just know that mama's money is not always designed for your every thought and whim. We actually have a budget and we have things that we need to do and we have to take care of our house first. And then if we have extra, let's talk about what that looks like. So I just think it's really made a difference in me not having the pressure of, oh, I have to do all of these things. The mom guilt, like I don't have to worry about that because we are talking about it. They understand. And if they don't understand, they'll grow to understand. But I have to stand firm in this is what we're doing for our house. This is what the budget looks like. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you can do. And kind of help train them into thinking differently about my money.
Erica, I feel like me and you might need to schedule a side conversation to like have you go over your plan with me one more time. Because I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I'm right there with you. And maybe I could pick up some tips from you.
Anytime.
Great. All right, Jenny.
Okay, so I also have 2 kids and they both have their own debit card. It's actually through Greenlight, and it's kind of cool because they set aside money to spend, they set aside to save, and they set aside to give. And so we kind of do the same thing. Actually, Erica's my my inspiration because, our kids work, okay? I know that they don't legally work, but they work. So if they want to, buy something, even if they don't want to buy something, they still have to work. So my husband is an entrepreneur and they help with the business and help do things and they get paid. And Matt decides, how much they get paid. And then they kind of have the liberty of deciding where their money is going to go in their little budgets. But so far, so good. I mean, yesterday we took them to Misfit Toys. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's in the Heights. And they were near tears when we got them just a few things that they didn't have to pay for. I mean, we were getting hugs all night long. So, but I think it's because we're not raising them to be entitled. They don't go to a store and expect to get something every time we go. So when they do, it's like this huge celebratory event. The other thing that actually the Women's Resource taught me was to check my credit. So I always tell people that that's one thing that you can do consistently, whether you have money or don't have money, is to check your credit constantly. So, and that was, again, something I learned just from volunteering with the organization. So now I check it pretty regularly. And one of the most important reasons, especially right now, for those of you on the call, is that, you know, this is a time right now where people are really practicing their fraud skills and, you know, across the world. And so it's really important to check your credit and make sure that everything on there is correct. And you'd be surprised. I mean, it could be an incorrect address that somebody used. There could be an account on there that you know you paid on time and maybe it's showing as late. So for me, that's, you know, kind of the biggest thing that I do pretty regularly.
Great, thanks for sharing that. I had to write that down, green light. I had not heard of that before. So look at this, we're sharing ideas. We're getting inspired. Hopefully the rest of you are feeling inspired too. I'm loving this. All right, the next question is, can you tell us about a financial goal that you have set in the past and what actions did you take to achieve it? Let's start with Erica. She just unmuted, so I'm going to start with her.
That was an accident. Gosh, I feel like I always have the same goal, which is to pay down my credit card bill, which, don't get me wrong, I have paid off this card before. I can do this. But it never fails. Like, you know, you get off track a little bit, or you go on vacation. Vacation, that is like a #1 money sucker for me, personally, just because that's where I'm like, we're doing everything, we're going all out, like, let's do it. And then it's like, you get home and you're like, it was great, you have pictures, you got souvenirs, you had a fantastic time, and you got a bill waiting for you too. So it's things like that that are definitely goals for me. So that one credit card is still, it's still there, it's still looming. I'm not overwhelmed by it. I mean, I always have a plan. I'm always throwing anything extra I get to it, which helps to move things better. But that definitely is something that I feel like is a long lasting thing. One day it won't be a thing, but for right now, it's still a thing. But I'll say on addition to that, this year I had a different goal, which was to pay off my car faster. And so I actually came up with this during one of our group classes, and I was telling Jenny about it. I was so hyped that I figured out a plan. And so I had a certain amount of money that automatically goes to savings, because for me, the savings needs to be invisible. I cannot see the account. I don't need to know what's in there. I just need it to go and be safe in its bubble, because if I see it or touch it, it's not going to work out. So I have it automatically drafted to do that. I do the same with what I do for my 401k. I don't look at any of things that has to do with saving or investing. And that's just, it works best for me not to do that. But I decided to actually, when I calculated how much I was putting into savings every month automatically, that I could pay off my car in half the time and be done by June if I just move that savings over for a short amount of time directly to my car payment. And so I'm really excited about doing that. I've paid off a car before, only once in my life. I've had a few cars, but this is the second time like I'm actually going to be paying it off and still driving it. I have a horror story about paying off a car and then the car breaking down to where I could not drive it the week later. And I was so angry because I didn't get to experience the feeling of not having the car payment, because I had to go and buy a car literally a week later. It was tragic. I got stories for days, you guys. But yeah, so I would say, you know, the credit card thing is always there, but I think this year the car one is the one that I'm really excited about doing. And I was glad that I came up with the idea during one of our classes, because I could share it with them, like, hey, this is what I'm doing and I'm really hype about it. And it's so nice to have encouragement from other people who are doing their, like, yeah, that's great. So, you know, it works both ways. Like, we don't just coach others, they're helping us and they're coaching us too. So it's really cool.
Great. Yeah. So I think, just with what Erica's saying about, just that secret sauce, talking about your finances, hopefully you're seeing here, just the impact of just hearing what other people are going through. And I know for me, like, I just like want to jump off this call and like go look at my budget. Like, I just like, I don't know, it just gets me excited about planning, and that's also my personality. I like to plan and organize, but it gets me excited about looking back at my goals and strategizing on how I can achieve them. So I would just say, before I pass it off to Ashley and Jenny to answer this question, if you want to talk to someone about your finances, if you feel like you don't have someone in your life that you can do that with, the Women's Resource does offer one-on-one financial coaching, and our one-on-one financial coaches is someone that you can talk to about your finances. You can talk to them about what your goals are, and they can help hold you accountable to them. You can share your ideas and your thoughts. So that's just one place where you can go to talk about your finances. But seek out a friend too. There are probably people in your life that need to have this conversation, and just nobody's having it. So, if you were to just say to a friend, hey, would you just want to just chat about our finances sometime, and just, we don't have to share exact numbers or anything, but just maybe, what are some of your goals and what are you doing to work toward them? And I bet that would spawn some really great conversation between the two of you, and probably help you come up with some ideas, to reach your own goals. Anyways, that's my little soapbox, piggybacking on what Erica said. I'm going to pass it off to Ashley. Ashley, tell us about a financial goal that you've set in the past and what actions you've taken to achieve it.
Yes, so very similar to Erica, a goal I've had in the past and one that is reoccurring is paying off my credit card debt. So that has been a biggie for me. It was my first credit card. I had used it for multiple things. And of course, they get you with, if you spend X amount of money within X amount of months, then you get X amount of rewards. So I was like, oh, I can do that, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And boy, did I do that, easy peasy, a little too lemon squeezy. So since then, I was able to pay off the original balance. That was my main goal. And a couple of things I did to pay it off was, one, I met with a financial coach. So I love that you brought that up, Kelly, because I'm very much a verbal processor first and foremost. So it just helps to really have someone else to just talk through what I'm thinking, talk through I don't know, even if it's just, I need to workshop a couple of ideas, I need to workshop the timeline of when I can realistically do this. And then it always helps to have someone else who has additional resources that I may not be aware of, because I'm only me, myself, and Dottie. There's only so much knowledge that I'm privy to. So when you have two brains tackling the same goal, it always helps to then just have my one little Ashley brain. So met with a financial coach. After that, we found a debt payment Excel sheet that goes through the avalanche and snowball methods. So to see what debt payment strategy would work the best for me. So we went through that Excel sheet together. I landed on a strategy because I liked the timeline and I liked how much money I'd be able to pay as opposed to the other one. And then after that, I, of course, made my handy dandy goal gauge, because I wanted to get that visual stimulus of being able to track my goal and being able to see that thermometer go up and up and up until the payments were done. And then the last thing I did was added my my payments to my budget. So I also wanted to make sure whenever I go through my budget, I don't forget to actually make the payments. And since I go through my budget regularly, that's the go-to place of where I see and I have that reminder, okay, this is the time to make those payments. This is the time to shine, because we're going to get this thing done and over with. So since then, as I said, I was able to pay off the original balance. I felt so happy and ecstatic. And then I got to celebrate with my coach too, because of course, I mean, they're working with me, they're encouraging me the entire time. So they were just as thrilled and ecstatic to see me make those payments too. And it was even nicer on top of that, because they have access to other information. So they pulled my credit score at that time, and they're like, because you've been making these regular payments and because this debt fell off, this is how much your credit score grew by. So I wasn't even looking at my credit score. I wasn't even thinking about improving my credit score at the time, knowing, of course, in the back of my head that my debt payments would impact it. That wasn't even on my radar, because I was just so, narrowed in on making these payments and clearing out my debt. So when they told me that, it was kind of like a nice cherry on top of everything. So that was a very positive experience. And with the pandemic, with the freeze, unfortunately, not had to, but I did rack up another bill on my credit card. But now, because I have that previous experience, because I'm still working with my financial coach, and because I'm still in a position where I know how much money what money is going where, I know I have the flexibility to make those payments comfortably to pay it off. So that was one experience in the past of setting a goal, and that was how I got to it.
Love that. Love it. Congratulations on your paying off all those debt payments. Good job. All right, Jenny.
Okay, so with my first job, I was 22-ish, and my colleague at the time asked me if I had set aside anything in my retirement plan for work. And I'm like, no, I'm 22. I really don't even care about retirement. I want to spend what I make. And she was like, no, that's not a good idea. We're going to be working together very closely, and I need you to do this. And I sort of just entertained the idea, and then realized that she was giving me, information that was actually really beneficial to my future. So from that conversation on to this day, I've, invested in my retirement plan. And so one of the things that my first employer offered was a match. And so she would tell, my colleague would tell me, you're really just giving money away by not taking advantage of this. Our employer is going to give you this money for your retirement. So I have maxed out on the, employer contribution, or max, since then. And I think that was really good advice back then, because one of my biggest excuses to her was, at that time I was making like $27,000 a year, and my rent was, $800 a month, and then car payment and insurance and bills and cell phone and whatever. And it was just me, taking care of myself. I didn't have anybody else. So she kept telling me, no, you have it in your budget. You can put something, even $20 out of your paycheck, whatever it is. And so I just started doing that. And then, yeah, I was living paycheck to paycheck, at that time. But it was because I was also investing in my future, my retirement. And so I really appreciated that advice back then. And I would definitely give young people, with their first job, the same advice now, because you don't want to get to the point where you're 55 and you have a little bit of time to go and realize that you have nothing saved or being invested for your future. So great advice that I still share today.
Yeah, that is really great advice. I've been in those exact same shoes. I remember going through a training and somebody challenged me and around my retirement. And I was like, I just can't save anything. I don't have a single dime to put towards retirement. I have 2 kids in daycare, a house payment. Like, I just can't do it. And they really challenged me, like, look again, is there anywhere else that you can think of that you could pull this money? And it took them asking that question 3 times in 3 different ways. This was coaching at its best. For me to have the aha, like, wait a second, there is one place that I could probably pull something from. And we started small too, just $20 a month, but I felt like, wow, I have started, I've started. So that was like ripping the Band-Aid off. So, and it was something.
I think too, that's why a spending diary is so important, because you start to realize that you spend maybe only $1 a day on something that you don't need, or maybe it's a coffee a day, or McDonald's, or something. By the time you add up just those little things that are wants and they're not needs, you realize that you do have something that you can put away for your future or for emergency savings or whatever. So you kind of have to go through that self-realization step and then just, redirect that money.
Yep, for sure. Well, thanks so much, guys. We have a little bit of time for some questions from the audience. So I wanted to see if anyone, in our audience today wanted to, you can either put it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself and ask any of the panelists a question that you might have.
I don't have a question, but I just would like to, can you guys hear me? Let's see, okay. Hi, my name is Monica and I relate so much to Erica, almost everything, to all of you ladies. But I just wanted, since we're talking, women and money, I am a single mom, I'm divorced, I have 2 4-year-olds. So what you were saying, Erica, about, teaching your kids that they don't get everything for free, it costs money, you have to teach them the value of the money. Now, being a single parent, I see that can be tough when you have the other parent who makes more money. And then the other parent purchases gifts and stuff. And then you have to explain to kids, well, I can't do that. He can, but I can't. So that's going to be conversations I will have to have with my kids. That's really tough. I mean, they are 4 and I already see the difference. So that's very tough. But I also wanted to say that what Ashley was saying, love all this, informations you ladies sharing. I am home buyer counselor here at Fifth Ward. So we are helping clients who wants to buy a home, who wants to purchase a home, first-time home buyers. But also, I touch up the credit and budgeting and all that good stuff. But even when I'm doing this, that's my job. I'm realizing how much I can benefit if I would be a client. So if, I know what to do, but am I doing it? I'm not really doing it as I'm telling my clients. So I think that will be actually very beneficial if I can be your client, and you can, it's kind of funny because you should know what to do, which I know what to do, but I'm not really doing it. So anyway, that's kind of my takeaway for today. So thank you so much for all the great information, ladies. I might contact you.
Thank you for sharing, Monica.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
right there with you. I work, at the Women's Resource. So we work in the space of financial literacy and financial education. And I also see a financial coach because it definitely helps me to be a client and to be on the receiving end of having that information and having that support as well. So I'm right there with you.
And I just wanted to say, in terms of your first comment about your kids, don't get discouraged by the fact that he can financially, buy him things, material things. That was a struggle of mine as well. I've been married before, and so I've experienced that as well. But the thing that I tried to focus on was giving them the experiences I wanted them to have. I want them to have memories. I want them to have experiences, doing things, and having memories that they'll treasure, not just the materialistic things. So if I focused on what I could give them that didn't cost money, but would cost them heart space, then that was the thing that made it better for me. So I took the focus off of what he could do financially and focused on what I could do for them in other ways. And it really makes it a lot different and makes it easier. It takes the pressure off too. So good luck though.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm a loan coach and do underwriting at On the Road Lending. Currently, I'm in the position of doing intake, just moving around COVID staffing. But I find this isn't about me so much as it's about my clients. We struggle a lot trying to communicate what we do because we do something really different. We finance people based on their budget capability and their stability, not their credit scoring, which is a wonderful thing. But it's challenging to communicate. And what is even more challenging to balance is that a lot of folks, they have the champagne right notion and the beer budget, right? So what there's a lot of there's a lot of I deserve, and it's a hard phrase to work with because we don't live in a culture where everybody just gets a great functional car and an amazing functional home, and we don't live in that society. We live in a capitalistic society that has historical racism. So it's a very confusing time for a lot of people, and the I deserve is a really tough one to work with people because I think especially for parents that are single, maybe have come from poverty, work very hard. They do have this sense of I deserve, and I want to honor that. But it's just a hard, I don't know, it's a hard phrase to work with. I'm always trying to work with the what's practical, what's affordable, what are you going to like that you really, what are you really going to like, but that you truly can afford right now versus the I deserve, I deserve the this, or I deserve the that, or and of course, some people just go away because we're really not, we're not here to overfinance them. We're not a typical dealer. We're not going to put them in a mid-size SUV when really they need to be in a Toyota Camry. Like, we're just not, and so anyway, I'm just curious how you guys work around that I deserve, if you hear that a lot, and how you work with that with your clients. Thank you.
Ladies, do either one of y'all want to tackle that one?
Go,
So
Jenny.
I feel like this might be a more appropriate question for Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
With working with so many different clients, I guess the only thing that I might offer is that, it's really hard when you are, and I can kind of speak to this from experience, growing up with a single mom who literally every car broke down or was repossessed. So by the time I had my own job and money, yeah, I totally felt like I deserved, something that I could depend on, and also something that was, gorgeous and I would love to drive or whatever. I do think though that coming from it, maybe at a point or a space of humility and sort of empathizing with women who, maybe experience the same thing, and saying, you do deserve it. And that's why, this car that you really, really want, that is something that you can have later on. Kind of like what Ashley was saying earlier. It's a goal. It's not a goal denied. It's a goal deferred. Like, you can totally get that in 3 years or 4 years. And that seems like such a long way away. But right now, we know for sure we can fit this into your budget where you will never feel overwhelmed. And God forbid an emergency happens with the car, you can afford it. If you go to the next level though, and there's an emergency, you're going to be stuck, and we don't want that for you. So I don't know if that's kind of helpful, but Ashley, you might have some better advice.
Yeah, no, that's
No, I
all
like
in
it.
line with everything I was gonna say. It's very much sounds like in a coaching session with those clients, it would be an optimal time to discuss needs and wants and expectations. And again, just as Jenny said, going back to that mentality of a goal deferred is not a goal denied. So just because what they truly desire here and now, if it's not something that they can realistically attain within their budget or within their means, to make sure that they don't have other financial issues along the way of attaining this car, doesn't mean that that car isn't going to be there 2, 3, 4 years from now, when they may be in a better position to obtain the one that they truly desire, the one that they truly have their eyes set after. And then reminding them, celebrating those moments and those wins, because at the end of the day, they're still obtaining that vehicle. And depending on where they're coming from, depending on their circumstance, that can still very much be a thing worth celebrating. It is still a monumental moment for them to be able to purchase and have that car, and to be able to still provide transportation for their family, again, depending on where they're at and where they're coming from. So I would definitely not lose sight of wanting to celebrate that moment and remind them that it is something still worth celebrating. And also bringing into play the mindset of, just because it's not something here and now for us, we can still plan and have conversations about how we can get there when that time is right, and what steps need to be taken so that you can get the car that you truly desire and really want to have your hands on.
And I would just add one other thing to that, is that I agree with both of these ladies. And of course, I'm going to bring up the kid thing. But here's the thing. I think that I deserve starts so young. They're little people who think they deserve every toy that comes out and a lollipop every day because they ate their lunch. Like, it's a training of them to get used to the mindset of how to address that. So it's not just an adult thing. Like, I think it happens on all levels. At some point, you always feel like you deserve whatever the thing is. It's just retraining your brain and having those conversations with someone that will help you think differently and have perspective about what you do deserve. Yes, you deserve to eat. Everybody deserves to eat, but we do not all deserve lobster today for lunch. We just don't. How do we work through that? You know, what does that look like? So it's just giving people the tools and resource to retrain how they think about things like that, about deserving and, you know, their perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate all you guys on it. Just it's always a dance, and you know, like I said, we do lose people that are going to go somewhere and they're going to get that Tahoe at 24% that's 12 years old because they just want that huge car, because it's a lot. We work in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Majority of our clients are Texas, and big cars are sought after. It's the Texas way, I think. And it's really interesting trying to navigate that, especially knowing what kind of car I drive, which is this little tiny car. And I'm just trying to work with people, and we do lose them. But I appreciate your words and the phrasing and the thought process, because you know, you never want to shut down the I deserve, because there's something really rich there that is really important to them. There's something really emotionally, seriously there that needs to be worked on. So I want to honor it, but so I appreciate all your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. And we really love the work of On the Road Lending. So we're glad that you can make it on the call.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard of On the Road Lending and you are listening to this panel, I encourage you to go check them out. Check out their website because they're a phenomenal organization.
And I'm that person that they'll come to me. Your applicants will come to me, and I'll be calling them on the phone and having meetings, just going through their budgets, you know, their bank statements, and then we kind of do a deeper dive in coaching, but I'm the first line of defense.
Great. All right, well, wonderful. Well, that is you know, the end of our panel and the end of our time today, but I want to just give a huge thank you to Ashley, Erica, and Jenny for sharing with us your journey, your struggles, your aha moments, a piece of you with us today in honor of International Women's Day. Like I said before, I hope that this event has inspired you to, you know, one, go back and take a look at your own finances. Two, encourage another woman, encourage women around you. There's not enough encouragement to go around in this world that we're living in today. So go give a woman a pat on the back, say, I am proud of you. You are amazing. And set up a time with a bestie to ask them about how their finances are going. The Women's Resource is here for you if you need any financial classes or coaching. And, you know, we are just excited that you're here with us today. I'm going to leave you with a few words from the International Women's Day website. It says, so make a difference, think globally, and act locally. Make every day International Women's Day. Do your bit to ensure that the future for girls is bright, equal, safe, and rewarding. And with that, I'll say goodbye.